Hey guys, welcome to my fourth YouTube episode. Thank you for everybody that has been joining me, everybody that's been leaving comments, everybody that has been liking the post or subscribing to my channel. Thank you to everybody that has been sending me, just topics that they want me to cover, that they're interested in, that they would like for me to talk about. I really appreciate all the feedback and everybody who's just been consistently supporting me. I really do thank you so much. And today, my very first guest is my boyfriend, Sam. And he is going to be helping me unfold the topic that I have today. So the topic, it was actually requested, and it is on the effects of Stockholm Syndrome in the African American male community. So Stockholm Syndrome is defined as the psychological tendency of a hostage to bond with, identify with, or sympathize with his or her captor. So, Sam, as an African American male, I really feel like it was the most important to get, your perspective on something like this. I didn't just want to put in my 2 cents because I don't know what it's like. And I really just wanted to hit a few different points about this subject in particular. I wanted to start with everyday life. So how, if at all, do you feel like Stockholm Syndrome affects you, if it does, in your everyday life?
I was speaking on a personal level. I don't know if it affects me much at all in my just everyday life. Like when I go to work, I'm not seeking the approval of my white coworkers. When I come back to my place, I don't feel the need to be smiley in every white person's face that walks by. Like, I'm comfortable with myself, and I don't look at anybody's opinion higher than anybody else who hasn't done anything for me. But I mean, it is something to say. Usually, affluent black males don't typically marry black women. Often feel the need to marry outside of the race, usually with a white woman. So I don't think that's just coincidence. I think at a certain point, the trophy wife image and what you want to look like and what you want to be perceived of as others affects ultimately how you live your everyday life. And that's why you might see black men, I guess, going for what they consider the prize of other white men and white women as wives, and how they disregard black women easily. It exists. And I'm not saying to the extent where black men consciously go out and seek the approval of white males, but I mean, you can look at pro athletes. If me as an advisor, financial advisor, goes out and talks to a pro athlete, and a white advisor goes out to him, or a Jewish advisor goes out to him, a lot of pro athletes or people that ain't experienced in the industry, we might tell them the same thing, but they might feel more comfortable if I'm a different skin color. Mm-hmm. And I mean, that's industry wide. Like the episode of Atlanta, when the beginning of the episode, he was like, he went to a black lawyer's office. He was well qualified, on his own firm. And as soon as he walked out, he was like, yo, why are you taking me to this black lawyer, bro? Give me a Jewish lawyer. Mm-hmm. Regardless of the information he gave him. Some people just want certain people to fit a mold. And I think that has a lot to do with it. And I think that was a remnant of what we've been through as a people here.
Wow, that's definitely very insightful. You articulate yourself well. And how do you feel, again, if at all, it affects you in the workplace? So first of all, can you identify what it is that you do?
I'm a financial advisor with Merrill Lynch, Wealth Management.
Okay. Cool. And do you feel like in your industry that, first of all, let's talk about how many of us are in, that industry?
For sure. So in my office, of about 50 advisors and maybe 30 help staff, like CFAs or whatever the case. I'm one of 2 black advisors, and out of the whole staff of about 80, 4 of us, 4 black people in the office.
4 black people total in the office.
Total about 80.
Mm-hmm. And being that there are 4 out of 80 people in the office, how does that make you feel? Like in the workplace, how does it make you feel?
Okay, well, it's 2 ways. I'll start negative and I guess build to a positive. Well, one, it makes me question who's giving out the opportunities. Well, how do only 4 people get hired here, and then the 4 people that are hired here perform exceptionally well. So it's not like we get in there and we fumble with the rock. It's just we're not getting past the rock too often. So I wonder about that, but right now, until I'm at that point where I can hire out, that's outside of my control. Positively, gives me a sense of duty, responsibility, because I know when I go into work, even though I would love to just represent myself, I'm cognizant that I don't. I kind of set the table for everybody after me from my institution that looks like me, from the same neighborhoods, age, demographic, all that stuff. So that's something I'm aware of. And then just also, I know, to be candid, nobody in the office has probably been through some of the same things as me and made it to that point. So it actually makes me feel better. Just because I know when it comes down to it, I've been through tougher than maybe not closing a couple clients that I wanted to.
Wow. You never really think about that. And I guess I'm not in a scenario, again, like that. We have a lot of different races in the field of psychology. And so I never really thought about what it would feel like to walk into my office where I'm one of 4 out of almost 100, coworkers. And I know that we have often had great conversations about just having to go above and beyond. Can you shed some light on that about, having to just go outside and go above because you're one of 4 in an office of 80?
For sure. So I'm really fortunate that coming into finance, my first managing partner, he was the only black managing partner in the entire firm. I was with Northwestern Mutual before this. But for him to get to that point, I mean, he had to be top producer. They haven't met Leo, so they don't know, but he had to be top producer. I mean, best dressed head to toe, clean slate. He was a minister, married, wife and kids. Kids did great, went to college, everything before he was even afforded the opportunity. So, I mean, when you look at managing partners from other places at my last firm compared to Leo, it's like, how are these guys even in the same title?
Mm-hmm.
Like, head and shoulders above the rest.
Mm-hmm.
And then just speaking of myself individually, he taught me a lot, just how about setting goals, whatever the minimums were or whatever the requirements were that didn't really apply to me. Mm-hmm. And he was very candid about it. So I always knew what to expect working in finance. So transitioning to my next firm, bigger role, bigger name, Merrill Lynch, obviously, it just didn't affect me. So when I think about the requirements that I have to go forward and set, I just know I can't perform about everybody else. I'm the only one in my office that wasn't referred in. So out of the whole 80, everybody knew somebody within the firm before, either a different office or a different state, wherever the case. But they knew somebody that was already functioning in the role, and that's how they got in Merrill Lynch. So I'm the only one off the strength of my resume and experience and my internships that got into the role. So
that speaks volumes.
For sure. But it just goes to show how does anybody else get the same opportunity without having to go through the same experience? Because, I mean, undergrad, I did a lot. Already working in finance, like I already put up numbers to start to get into the roles of financial advisor or Merrill Lynch. So a lot of people just don't come from that, and their parents don't have the foresight to have, or even the resources to be able to invest in them to where they can take unpaid internships, or they can go through college and have a little extra spending change where they don't have to work a regular job just to fund themselves. They can actually go out into the industry and do things for free or for less than they should to get that experience. So when we start talking about ourselves as in general, like how many realistic opportunities are we giving ourselves? If to get in the industry you have to have all this experience, you have to have this great education, and then you have to have these internships that nobody pays for. So unless you come from a certain home, it's kind of what shot do you have? And I'm the only one in my firm that didn't go to a private high school or a private institution, college. So just industry wise, and as far as setting goals, it's kind of like, we're starting a race at the 100-yard mark, and everybody else is already taking off. So it's just a lot of catching up.
Wow, and that's a great segue, because you spoke so much on education. And I really am very interested to know, how do you feel like, if at all, again, Stockholm Syndrome affects you in the Department of Education?
I think that's probably where it's the most prominent. I think that's where it's the most practiced. Starting off school, people tell you all of these prestigious universities that never really invested in you to begin with, or your community that you should want to go to. that are better than the communities or the colleges like the HBCUs that actively recruit you, actively nurture you, actively understand you, and actually give a fuck how you do after them. Only person in my firm that went to a historically black college. Coming out of school.
Shout out to VSU.
Oh, you already know. Business school, Reginald F. Lewis.
No, the school of psychology, but it's
cool. So they're coming out of undergrad. Tevin, he knew a shorty, and we were at her house, and her mother was a doctor, and she was asking us what schools we were going to, and I told her Virginia State, and she kind of like turned her nose up, and when she left, her daughter was like, yeah, my mom said I can't go to HBCU, and I'm kind of like, why not? She was like, I won't do as well. The schools aren't as good as the PWIs. And I'm thinking, this is a black doctor.
Which is a narrative.
Yeah,
which is a real narrative.
This is a black doctor from Prince George's County, Maryland, and this is how she feels about our schools. And if she felt that way, why wasn't she putting her efforts back into those schools to make them a thing? And, when I tell people where I was going to go for law school, they get really excited about it, even though that institution hasn't done anything for me, couldn't do for me what Virginia State did for me, because not only did it give me the opportunity coming out of undergrad where I wasn't a great student, it also gave me the opportunity to develop as a young man, develop as a professional, develop as a student. And then when I didn't have maybe the skills I needed to be where I'm at now, they helped me develop them or find talents that I didn't have myself. Gave me the extra time that I needed, that another institution that wanted me for law school wouldn't have given me, because I was just another student rolling in. So I take offense to kind of the HBCU slander personally, because I know what it can do when you apply yourself. So anybody that kind of slanders HBCUs, it's more a reflection of them than anyone else, because I went through there, went from a public high school in Prince George's County, and I'm still at where I'm at. And I don't mean to, brag or anything, but it is what it is.
But shout out to VSU.
For sure.
For holding it down. And I mean, those were the really prominent areas of life that I wanted to touch on. But is there anything else, wrapping up, that you would like to say about, Stockholm Syndrome and, just being a male, just being an African-American male in America, 2018?
I mean, I think it's a lot of pressure that a lot of men don't really explain or get to express. And it might get written off as them, trying to be somebody else or working for somebody else's approval. And sure, that might be some cases, maybe a one-off every now and then. But I think it's more to the point where just, I don't want to use the word trauma lightly, but a lot of African American males, black males, go through a lot. And then how they react to that, people kind of judge, the symptoms of being through a lot of trauma. So if somebody
PTSD
took my friend from me 14, and now I react violently to somebody taking my friend from me, now I'm stupid, or I'm ignorant, or I don't see the big picture. Well, nobody really equipped me with the resources to deal with what I'm going through. And then it's easy to just label them all, throw them off to the system. Or if I make it through that, if it's legal, and say if he's a rapper, people love saying rappers, glorify all of this bullshit. But if I make it through that, nobody really equipped me how to value anything but money and girls, because that's all y'all really told me was valuable. So now I got to this point where I can make a difference, where I've escaped the trauma, but nobody told me how to survive that survivor's remorse that comes from just even coming out. And I mean, when you come from certain neighborhoods, every time you hear a story, it affects you. And now you're at a point where you're good for yourself, but nobody tells you how to go back and help. But then everybody judges you for not coming back and help. Or every time you come back and help, it's why you do that and you didn't do this. Mm-hmm. And then so now you neglect it, because every time you try to come back, somebody has something negative to say. Or nobody equips you with, all the girls in high school telling you that being a street dude is a cute thing. So now you do the cute thing, now you've tricked out your spot, and now all the girls want the successful businessmen later in the future.
That's how that goes.
So now you got to deal with the resentment that you feel for black women that didn't quite know how to love you correctly or didn't know how to nurture you yet. And now you got the resentment to the other black men that did the right thing or the opposite route, who went and got what you didn't. So now you still stuck in a spot when you get out that you're still angry and you had that resentment, and then it just sends you to more negative habits. And I just feel like black men, we don't really ever get the chance to get back on our feet in a lot of places, because it feels like everybody else is just always throwing more crap on us. Like if I go in a relationship and I don't treat my women well enough. It's like black men not shit. It's like, all right, we can look historically, they took the black man out the household so women could get welfare in the 60s. We can look at the war on drugs and see how many of our fathers were taken out the household. So now you got a black man growing up with no father. And every time he tries to give love and he doesn't do it the right way, it's like all he hears is the negative. It's people shitting on him. And since a lot of black fathers are out of the household, whether it's because they chose not to be or they were taken away from them, they just don't have the opportunity to get it right or to learn. And I think just like anything else, when you feel like you're being attacked, you usually lash back out. So it takes a real strong black male to go through all of that and still, like, nah, I'm still gonna do the right thing. I'm still gonna love black women. I'm still gonna raise a beautiful black family. I'm still gonna make sure my partner's straight, even though they choose a different lifestyle. And I'm still gonna make sure I do right by people, regardless if they do wrong by me. And I'm not saying black women don't go through the similar thing, but just from a black male's perspective, I understand how a lot of friends of mine or people of mine, because even black dudes I don't know, I just got a lot of respect for them when they're trying to make an honest living, because I understand how tough it is. So I would just like to, people just pay extra attention just to how they critique us, because we do need it. But just how we go about it, just make sure it's in love and not anything else.
Wow. And that was a powerful, powerful narrative. And that is the most amazing way for me to end this segment, by saying that mental health in our black communities, our men and our women, is so important. Because a lot of what he described is PTSD and just, being through trauma, going through these things and not being equipped with how to handle the aftermath, and that's so important to us. And I thank you so much for coming. I love the way you articulate yourself. And I thank you so much for coming and doing this interview for me. And I thank you guys so much for joining us and tuning in.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, you're so welcome. I really want you guys to like and subscribe and leave your comments. This video, I feel like, was amazing. It was amazing to hear this narrative, and I would just love to know everyone else's thoughts. Please let me know. And I thank you guys for joining me. I'll see you guys next time.